Welcome to the Successful Home Inspector Podcast, where we discuss everything you need to know about home inspection from A to Z. Brought to you by Preston Sandlin and Home Inspection Carolina. We're here to share some success stories and some not so successful stories. Some things we can all learn from, and maybe, just maybe, we can help each other and raise the profession. So sit back, turn up the volume, and enjoy. Now, here's your host of the Successful Home Inspector Podcast, Preston Sandlin.
Are you struggling to make your home inspection business grow? Well, have I got the answer for you. HomeInspectionFlyers.com. At HomeInspectionFlyers.com, you get 5 flyers a month. There are 3 sales flyers and 2 recipe flyers. And you can customize them to exactly what you want. And these make great flyers when you go to the offices to put in their boxes, especially if you're doing like candy bowls or something along that nature. Like I said, it's 5 flyers a month for $29.99, and they're very creative, and you just put in your information. They come as a publisher file, and you just put in your information, and then you send them off to get printed. You can send them off online, and you can get color copies for less than 10 cents a copy. It's a great way to go. I went from being a 1-man home inspection firm to a 7-man home inspection firm on this one strategy alone. So try it today. HomeInspectionFlyers.com. Thanks.
All right, listeners and home inspectors who are probably one and the same, we have a special treat for you today. I have a good buddy of mine, Mr. Rory Warren in the Boston, Massachusetts area. How you doing this morning, Rory? How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, thanks.
Rory, tell us a little bit about you, because we'd like to get to know you personally.
Well, it's not a lot to tell. I'm married for almost 35 years. I got 2 beautiful girls. One's 30, one's 20, and she's still in college. Got a grandson that I spend a lot of time with, and the only other male in the family. So
yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you're in the same boat as me.
Yeah, in the dog.
We live. Yep, exactly. My dog's female too. So we live about 25 miles outside of Boston, a little town called Hopkinton. Lived there most of my life. It's just a little one-horse town where the Boston Marathon starts. So one day a year we're famous, and the rest of the year nobody knows where we are, and we like it that way.
Awesome. I love Boston. I recently went there. For all the listeners out there, I wanted to hook up with Rory and have dinner or something and his family. And the most ironic thing, he was in Charlotte at the same time I was in Boston. He had to come here for a wedding, and we had planned to do a little, I try to do an educational trip each year with my girls. So we try to pick a, historic city, like we've done D.C., New York, and we did Boston. So, but the one weekend, it was the same weekend you were here.
It just happened.
Rory, tell us, not too many of us grew up wanting to be a home inspector. Tell us, how did you get into home inspection, and what did you want to be when you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, I don't think I ever wanted to be anything in particular. I was thinking about it the other day, and just nothing popped into my head. I really didn't know where I was going to go, but in 1986, I remember very clearly, my father-in-law was a retired engineer, and he used to do relocation inspections for a company in Minnesota. Some of the guys, I'm sure some of the people who've been in business for a long time remember real estate support services in Minnesota, but my father-in-law did it, and he did a ton of them, and he wanted to slow down, and he's got 4 sons. He offered to teach the business to them, but none of them were really interested. So he asked me, and I was fed up with my job, and I said, well, why not? I'll give it a shot. That's 30 years later, still doing it.
Oh, awesome. So you've been doing inspections for about 30 years. Tell me, what are some of the changes you've seen, Rory?
I can tell you 30 years ago, our inspections lasted about 35, maybe 45 minutes.
Wow.
We just scribbled notes onto a little 4-page form. If we had to, we took Polaroid pictures and taped them or stapled them onto the paper.
Right.
We made, I think we got paid $78 for an inspection.
Oh my gosh.
20 if we did radon. Yeah.
Wow.
But if you really worked hard, you could do 4 or 5 a day. So you could make a good living back then. But now it's all technology. We use tablets, laptop computers, even the software. We use 3D software. And I was looking, I remember using 3D when it was DOS-based, before there was Windows. And even I thought that was the greatest thing, but it was still a 2.5, 3-hour project to create a report. Now, boom, 10 minutes after you walk out of the house, the report's done, looks beautiful, digital photos, tools. I remember 30 years ago I had a little handful of hand tools, and that was it. That
right.
A Polaroid camera and a clipboard. That was it. Now, I looked in my car the other day, I think, from my insurance company, we were taking inventory. I had like $5,000 worth of tools in my car. I don't think I have nearly enough. I always constantly, there's something else I need or I want or I'm going to get. It's evolved tremendously.
Absolutely. And for the listeners out there, Rory says back when it only took 45, that was everybody. That wasn't just him. I mean, that was us too. I mean, that was what was expected at the time. It kind of evolved. I mean, home inspection used to be everybody worked for the seller, or at least it was in North Carolina. And, there was no such thing as home inspection, 40 years ago. So, they just brought their uncle or somebody to come look at, or their dad to come look at the house for them. But it's definitely evolved. And I think for the better, because the consumer is, getting, every day is getting a better product than before. Well, Rory, tell us, how many inspectors do you have, and was it hard to hire that first one? Because I know a lot of guys struggle with that. Take us back there. What was it like hiring that first one?
Well, first, right now I've got myself, a full-time inspector, a part-time guy, and 3 apprentices doing training. One's going to be full-time in about a month. He'll be ready to go. And, we're looking, next year at this time will be 3 to 4 full-time guys plus myself, plus whatever trainees we can pick up. So we're really growing. But it took me at least 10 years to add that first inspector and do it well. But, I had a guy, he's the best inspector I've ever met, and I just didn't manage it well, and business slowed down in the winter, and his wife was panicked, and she decided and insisted that, this is only a seasonal work, you need a steady full-time job, and, with her pushing him, he left. And I miss that guy still. I don't think I'll ever find an inspector that's that good. So I kind of gave up after that for another 6 or 7 years. I just worked on my own, and then finally I just decided that I'm just going to die in my car someday with the show for it if I don't start to grow. So I trained somebody. I got somebody with no experience, and he's been with me for 4 years now. He does more work than I do. He generates more revenue for the company than I do. He gets more requests than I do. So finally, I think we figured out how to do it correctly.
Yeah. Rory, I was right there with you. I hired the first guy, and I did the exact same thing you did. I panicked, or I don't know if panic's the right word, but say wintertime came and you only had 2 inspections, like for the day or even 1 inspection. Well, you're thinking, well, I better do that one,
Yeah.
But that's the wrong. It took me a while, but that's the wrong way to think. If you've hired a guy and you have 2 inspections, give them to him. You go market and go create more inspections. You have to eat last if you really want to grow your business. And it took me a long time to figure that out. But if you're always eating first, that guy's wife is going to panic. If it's not him, it's going to be his wife, one or the other. And I get it. I mean, I put myself in his shoes. Yeah, I would too. So it took me I did the exact same thing you did, and I shied away from it for a while, and then came back. And no, I feel your pain, because I had the exact same thing. Well, Rory, do you have? And I know it's all different depending on the level that the inspector comes in with experience or not experience. But do you sort of have a training process or an outline? Tell us more about what's your. If you hired somebody today, how would that work?
Well, we're a licensed state in Massachusetts, and it's a very strict, regimented program to get licensed. You have to do 25 inspections, observe 25 inspections with a licensed inspector. Then you can apply to the state to get an associate's license, which is an apprentice.
Right.
After that, you have to be employed for at least a year and do 100 inspections with that licensed inspector. And then you can apply for a full license from the state. So we have found that it's much easier to take someone with no experience who's never done a home inspection and teach them how we want it done, rather than taking somebody with 10 years of experience and trying to undo their bad habits. It's almost impossible. So we look for people. We recruit at the training schools.
Right.
There's a couple 8-hit-run schools in our area twice a year. We go in there and recruit, and there's another couple of local training programs that the state has an 80-hour class that they have to take before they can be licensed. So we go right in there, guest speaker, talk to them about the business, and kind of pick and choose who we want. And we make them a good offer. We pay them while they're being trained, which is the only way to ensure that you're going to get quality people. You can't just say, I need you to follow me around for a year for free, because they're not going to do it. So we pay them probably more than we should. We have we've only got the one full-time employee now plus the trainees, and we never really had a written process because we didn't need it. So it's evolving now. So every day I spend about 20 minutes at the end of the day writing down what I did, how we trained them. I'm videotaping training sessions in the office so that we know exactly what we did. We can go back and look at it. We did this right. We did this wrong. So our training manual is being built as we go. But by December, when we hire our next trainee, we hope to have a very distinct, documented procedure that'll we can hand the book and say, this is how we're going to do it. And if we follow this, it'll work.
Absolutely. That's awesome. And, you can use those videos and training things to train the newer guy. Because, same thing happened with us. I'm like, I keep doing the same thing over and over. If I'm saying the same thing over and over, I need to make a videotape of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I hate to reinvent the wheel, and I'm fortunate that I'm close to Dave Sherwood down in Connecticut, he's been a great resource for me for years, and he's a really good guy, and I can pick up the phone and call him when I need something, because he's done the same thing over the same time period, and he built his company a lot bigger than mine, but he's really good about sharing. I can ask him. He lets me come down and sit through his training sessions with his guys so I can just observe and see how he's doing it, take notes. So I take advantage of that resource whenever I can.
Yeah, Dave is a great guy. What I call what you're doing is you're building through the draft. You're getting just like football. I'm like, well, we can build through the draft or pick up some free agents. The problem with the free agents are that they might be stuck in their ways. Every once in a while you get a diamond in the rough. Now the downside of building through the draft is you got a long training, but like you said, you get them to walk, talk, and basically be like what you want, whereas sometimes with the free agents, we kind of have a combination, but I do like building through the draft because you can mold them from the get-go. If it's a person of integrity and, has good people skills, we can teach the rest, but, you got to have those two. You can't teach that.
You cannot teach people skills. That's a mistake I made for years, is trying to hire somebody who was had good technical skills, but I firmly believe you can teach a chimpanzee to be a home inspector if you have enough time. But it's that ability to interact that you can't teach anyone. It's either there or it isn't.
That you're exactly right. Well, I'm going to switch gears on here just a little bit, Rory, just to keep it off balance. Tell us, do you have a success quote you'd like to share with us, and maybe a way that it applies to you?
I have one that's on the wall in my office in very big letters. So I had printed up years ago because I just like it, and it summed up the way I was running my business for a long time. It's from Henry Ford, and it just says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Right. Love that quote.
Yeah, I look at it every day.
Yeah, I know. It's a good one. Well, tell us, Rory, two things here. Tell us something that people may not know about you, and what do you like to do? I know you don't have much spare time, but tell us, besides going to weddings, what do you like to do, or maybe tell us something people don't know about you?
Well, let's see. My first life, before I did this, I was a chef.
Oh, wow.
I was a corporate chef for a major hotel company, which was kind of a cool job when I was younger. We just lived in hotel suites, flew around the country, and helped open hotels, carved big hunks of ice into statues and things. And
you could do that?
It was a good life.
Can you do ice sculpture? Can you do that?
I can. That's all I did for years.
Oh, awesome. Brother, you need to do that for like some sort of realtor function or something. That's
a lot of work.
But man, that would be so impressive, Rory. If you could do like a realtor luncheon or something like that, sponsor a class or something, and roll in there with that ice sculpture that you did. Oh man, you should do it and put it up on Facebook too, man. People love when you have a skill or something, it humanizes you. You're not just business all the time. You're interesting. I want to see some of your work. Well, let's say that I'm a buyer or a real estate agent in the Boston market. There are obviously other home inspectors in your market. Why should I hire you? Is there something you do that others don't?
Well, in my market, there's a lot of things we do that most of the people that we compete with are dinosaurs. So they kind of make my job easy someday. But we're the only inspection company in our market that offers a complete package. We do the inspection, we do radon testing, we inspect pools, we inspect sprinkler systems. Nobody else does that market. So that gives us access to the high-end homes that we really want to do. We bill by the square foot, so every time that house gets a little bit bigger, it's just more money for us. We do mold testing, which most inspectors in our market won't do. So people can basically do the one-stop shopping. They call us, we can do everything they need in one visit, and it makes everybody's life easier. The agents love it.
Oh, cool. Hey, let me ask you something that's a little off script here, but did you do that mold thing through Sherwood? I know he's doing something with that.
Sure do. I was just going to say that's a huge piece of our business now is doing mold testing for the Green Home Solutions franchises in our area.
Well,
good.
Tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind. I mean, I'd love to hear about it. I'm sure listeners will.
Well,
too.
Dave Sherwood, again, I think is one of the best resources in our industry, and anybody who doesn't know him, you really find the time to meet him at the next national function. He's usually at them. But he developed this mold testing protocol called the Mold Help Program, and because we're close, we kind of worked with him as he was developing it and brought my guys down for the training to see how it would go. And it's just been fantastic. He's got a very regimented program. He's negotiated really good rates with a couple of labs for us. And he's set up with the Green Home Solutions now so that their franchise holders are supposed to use a mold help trained tester if there's one in their market.
Okay.
We're the only one in our market, so it's a lock. And I've got, I think, 7 of their franchises now running a mold testing business to the point where it's a day a week for an inspector. And
I don't do mold testing yet. I'm looking to get into it. I mean, I know a little bit about it. But let me just throw this at you. Say you had a 4,000 square foot house. And I know there's probably different variables, but 4,000 square foot house, want a mold test, what would be involved in that? What would you need to do?
There's a couple of different levels, particularly working with these Green Home Solutions franchises. Sometimes they've already gone through and done an assessment. So they'll say, okay, we need a mold pre-test and then a post-test mold in this area, this area, and this area. So to walk in the door, we bill $375.
Okay.
That's 3 samples.
Now, how many samples do you do, like an outside sample too?
Yeah, we always take the control sample outside, and then if it's just one area that they're treating, we'll take the control outside, we'll take an air sample in that area, and then a swab or a slide from the surface itself, and then we just use that to verify and the post-test. We just compare the two tests to make sure that the treatment worked and it did reduce the spore count.
Okay. So now you send that off to the lab, and how long does it take to get results? I mean, because I don't do it. I'm totally.
The lab I use uses FedEx overnight to deliver. I've got a drop box near my office that they pick up at 6:30 p.m. So as long as I get it into the drop box at 6:30 p.m. before the close of business on the next business day, we have the results back. We review them, email them to the client. So as long as we do the mold test on Monday through Thursday, they'll have the results the next day.
Okay, cool. And now now obviously there's some training, but do they also, I mean, interpreting the results? I mean, remember, I'm like, totally green to this. Do they help you kind of interpret? Because I know there's like different counts of different types, and some are toxic.
Yeah, our job is to do the sampling and to convey the results to whomever our client is, the tester or the homeowner or the buyer, the seller, whoever. We try not to get into the science very much because we don't have the credentials to back it up. Whether we know what we're talking about or not, we don't have the credentials. But the labs that we use make their scientists available to our clients. So it's great. Okay. Here's an 800 number. Give them a call. They'll explain this to you in terms that you can understand. And as I said, they have the credentials, so they can do it confidently.
Cool. And I'm sorry, Rory, I didn't mean to drill down so deep, but I'm interested in this, and I got to think that if I'm interested in it, that probably some other people are too. So I didn't mean to go so far off the script there.
No, that's fine. It's a fantastic. Like I said, next year, if it continues to grow like it is, we will have a full-time employee just doing the mold. And for a business owner, that employee will pay for himself, pay for the insurance, pay for the testing equipment, pay for a car, and pay me $1,000 a week on top of it.
Awesome.
I'm sure anybody out there can use $1,000 extra.
I might try to catch you at the next conference and get updated, see how it's coming, and Sherwood as well. Well,
please do.
Rory, you know as well as I do that if you do enough inspections, no matter how thorough, it doesn't matter. Because you know and I know it, you're going to have an unhappy camper. How do you handle an unhappy camper? Do you have a process? What's that look like?
Yeah, well, the first thing that we do is we try really hard to resolve it quickly because nobody wants to hear, I'll get back to you in a week.
Sure.
So when we get them on the phone, we'll ask them questions. We answer them honestly. If it is something, if it's the fault of our company, then boom, we're going to fix it right now. And we just do our best to solve that problem immediately when we have them on the phone. And 99% of the time we do. And we keep the agents involved in the process so that they know that we haven't thrown them under the bus or that we're not just brushing it aside. And, a lot of inspection companies hate to hear this and tell me that I'm wrong, but I just as soon write them a check.
Right.
Just write a check. If it's a small claim particularly, whether it's our fault or not, I have no problem saying, you know what, I'm sorry that this happened, and I don't feel that we're responsible. But if you'll sign that release, I'll pay for it because I want you to be happy. I want you to get into your house. We want your family to settle in, and it's just not worth it. So I'm going to send you a release form, sign it, get it back to us, and the day it hits my office, I'll have a check in the mail for you. And we come up looking like heroes.
Yeah, no, and I'm of the same belief that you are. I know so many guys get hung up on, I didn't do anything wrong, I'm not going to refund their money, and they can burn in Hades or whatever. I mean, maybe not that, but I'm like,
not
really?
Worth it.
They're going to blow you up. The realtor's going to blow you up. They're going to blow you up on good. I mean, and that damage was a heck of a lot more than that $350.
Yeah, exactly. And it turns into a marketing opportunity once the agency, hey, this guy called, my buyer called them yesterday, and the problem is resolved today. You look like a superhero to the agents. It's a good marketing opportunity.
Yeah, one thing I saw Gromiko talk about one time in a class, I think it was the Valley conference or something. But he was talking about, and I thought this was pretty brilliant. I mean, you probably already do it, and I do it, but I hadn't really put thought in it. He said, there was some sort of plumbing leak or something that was not their fault, that happened, after the fact, whatever. They call him up, and see, this is turning it around. And he said, you know what, we're going to go out there. So he went out there, or had a guy go out there, and, they had this all planned. And they told him, said, you know what, this happened after the thing. We're not responsible for it, but you know what, we're going to fix it for you anyway. So they fixed it for him, $150, and said, look, will you write us something, saying what we did? And the people are elated. So then after knowing that, they say, hey, this inspection company, went above and beyond, blah, blah, blah. And now he said, you've got something that's gold that's worth a heck of a lot more than $150.
Yeah, priceless.
So it turns it around, and, I of course, I had one inspector one time that quit, went to another company, and he says, well, I hear out there that if Home Inspection Carolina misses something, they'll pay for it, blah, 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 and I just don't want to be that. And I'm like, well, do you want the opposite reputation? That's the reputation you want. I mean, you're going to call that. I mean, he was so worried about the liability, and I was like, think about when you purchase something. You want somebody to take the risk out of it for you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
exactly. It's all about that customer experience.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, brother. I'm like, no, don't get me wrong, listeners out there. If there's something just crazy and they want, $6,000, I mean, we're not talking about that.
Right.
But anyway, well, Roy, we are going to get to some highs and lows here and some good stuff and find out some things you found on inspection. But first, let's take a pause for our sponsors.
Guys, let's face it, Yellow Pages are dead. The old days of calling your company AAA Home Inspection and expecting to get calls from that by being number one on the Yellow Pages don't work anymore. Today, you got to be number one on the search engines. That's Google, Yahoo, Bing, or a couple of others. Billy Borner from St. Louis knows how to do this. He has been number one for quite some time, and it brings him thousands of dollars each month. I've talked to Billy, and he's decided to make this available for you. SEO Secrets. And he normally charges $49 for this instructional video, but for our listeners, we've worked out a deal where it's $39.95. For $39.95, you can bring thousands of dollars to your company each month as well. Go to the homepage, thesuccessfulhomeinspector.com, and look on the tab SEO Secrets. Click on that and go to Billy's link.
Well, I am back here with Rory Warren of Warren Home Inspections in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Rory, tell us about a time when you failed. Take us there, and what did you learn from it?
Well, I think we already talked about it, but I think the biggest failure ever was when I lost that first inspector, because he was right. That said, he was the best inspector I ever had, and I just didn't manage his expectations. And after that, that's when I really started putting systems in place, and I'm going to make sure that I never lose an employee for a stupid reason like that. I mean, I didn't guide him. I didn't manage him well. So, right. And that was always been the hardest part about growing is managing people and keeping our employees happy. I'm really good at keeping my clients happy and agents happy, but I was just not succeeding with that, and it cost me a lot. And right after that, I simply started building systems and creating processes so that it's never going to happen again.
That's right. Yeah, my same thing. Just make sure you eat last. But you eat last, but you go out there and make sure that there's a whole lot of food on the table.
Exactly.
There's plenty to go around. Well, on the other end of the spectrum, Rory, tell us about a time. I had said I made it, but I don't like that because I always feel like we're working ourselves. How about have you had a I come a long way moment?
I've had a few, but the biggest one, and the one that sticks in my mind more than any, is that in my market is a very large home inspection company. And I think at one time, maybe 10 years ago when this happened, I think they're the biggest single office company in the United States.
I think I know who you're talking about. Go ahead.
And they owned our market. I think at one time they were doing between 25 and 35% of all real estate transactions in the state.
Wow.
And I caught their marketing rep throwing my brochures away in offices.
You caught him? How'd you catch her?
I caught her doing it. I didn't confront her. I walked in, I saw it happening. Didn't know who I was. But that's when and there was 20 different brochures there, and they were taking mine out, throwing them away. And that's when I figured out I'm affecting their business.
Wow.
A company that big, I'm having an effect on their bottom line, and they're doing something about it. And then I sat back, and first I was angry, and then I said, nope, that might be the biggest compliment I ever got, that I'm hurting their business, so we're doing something right.
Right. Yeah, I know mine have been thrown away, but I can never, and there's certain people I suspect or whatever, but I can never catch them in the act.
I caught them because they didn't know who I was.
Yeah, I had, I'm afraid I don't want to go into details here, but I had a situation where I suspected that the person, like, I'd been in office and I had to go back there for some reason that day, and I called them. And I just confronted him. Are you throwing my stuff away? No. Blah, 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 blah. And then somehow he told me that he had some sort of seminar there that night. And no, wait a minute. He had some seminar that night. And I said, really? Because I had just marketed there like at 4:30 that day. So I was the last one in there. I said, if I go over there right now, is my stuff going to be there? And he started backpedaling. I mean, this was the next day, and I went over there, and it was gone. So I put the stuff in there at 4:30 that evening. He had something there that night. The next morning, my stuff was gone. So, but, I can't. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get off the thing. But you're right. That was a big compliment.
Yeah. It really was. That's when I really sat back and said, this is going to work. We're going to make it. We're going to grow. We're having an effect on the market.
That's awesome. Rory, do you have a favorite book you could recommend to our listeners?
Well, see, I read a lot, and it's probably a cliche in our business, and most people have probably read it, and probably half the people you talk to have said it, but I think the book that affected the way I do business more than anything was the E-Myth Revisited.
I knew you were going to say that.
Somebody gave, an old friend of mine gave it to me years ago. The first time I ever met him, Mike Crow, I introduced myself to him, and he said, hey, have you read this? And I said, no. He said, this is a gift for you. Take this home and read it. And I read it, and I said, And I threw it on a shelf. And then about a year later, I opened it up, and I read it again, and I just said, big deal. And I threw it back on the shelf. And then maybe a year after that, I opened it, and I sat down, and I read it and paid attention to it. And then the light bulb came on, and I said, wow, I've been doing it wrong. And ever since then, I kind of use that as the blueprint for building our business, and it just made a tremendous difference. So anybody who hasn't read that book, send me an email and I'll send you one.
Oh, awesome, Rory, awesome. And he's right. It's an E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber, I think. And the big takeaway I got from that is systems. I mean, McDonald's, I mean, you can say whatever you want, but they're obviously the most successful franchise in the world, probably. And their whole secret is systems. They got systems in place where it doesn't matter who employ it, the system. You're dependent on systems, not a particular person. And You're right. And I had the same experience. I kind of blew it off the first time, second time, and when I finally went through and read it, it finally sunk in. I'm a slow learner, by the way.
Yeah, you got to kind of pound me on the head a couple of times before it sinks in. But.
Right, I got to do it wrong a couple of times before I find. It's a process of elimination for me. Well, I know the answer to this before I ask it, Rory, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Have you ever been thrown under the bus by a contractor? I know I have. How do you handle it? Do you have any ideas on, how to? I know we can't stop it. But.
Yeah, I mean, it bothers me because that's the first word out of every contractor's mouth is your inspector should have seen this. Your inspector should have told you about this. And I think the problem is the contractors in general don't understand the home inspection process. They don't understand the standard of practice that we work to. They don't understand that we're not code enforcement officers. And they don't understand that we don't have an hour and a half to evaluate a heat pump. We don't have an hour and a half to really evaluate the electrical system. If we did, a home inspection would take 3 days. And
right.
It doesn't happen. So, and they constantly, and it happens to us all the time, and I spend a lot of time explaining to agents and to my clients, this wasn't a code enforcement inspection. We work to the standards that the state says we have to work to. And because of that, this is what happens. But that's one of those situations we were talking about earlier. It happens, and sometimes we just write a check. Say, I'm sorry this happened. It's not our fault, but here it is. But I think the real problem that we have is that contractors just don't understand what we do and how we do it.
Right.
They never will because they don't have to understand.
Sure. No, I'm right there with you. Well, I got another curve to throw at you here, Rory. I apologize. I'll buy you a beer next conference. But here's something that bothers me, and I'm just going to throw it out there and see what you think about it. You know, like we're in the business of home inspection. People who call us, they need a home inspection. But, you know, it's sort of a question of whether they go with us or the other, you know, another guy, whatever. You know, if you go to the doctor, you're probably in some type of pain. You need what they have. Here's my problem with, you know, there's salesmen in this world, and, you know, I'm an entrepreneur, but I have problems with mold remediation salesmen and heating and air salesmen. And what I mean by that is, let me qualify that. And there's some good, high quality people out there, but there's also some people who are just salesmen. And basically they're out to sell a mold remediation whether you need it or not. And the same thing with some heating and air. And sometimes they use fear, I'm sure you've seen this, to sell it. Like, you know, they scare these people into thinking they have, you know, they're going to have respiratory problems if they don't buy this product. Now, if that's true, more power to them. But I've seen situations and been involved in situations where it was not true. They would do that to every house. Just they're trying to sell it, and they're using fear. And sometimes heating and air guys, you know, could fix this, and the system would be, you know, fine for another 5 years, but they'd rather sell them because they get a bigger commission, so to speak. So right. You kind of see, I don't really know what I'm asking you here, but I'm just sort of, what's your opinion on all that? And do you run into that? And do you have any ideas of how we could help the consumer?
I do run into it. I mean, everybody in our business runs into it constantly. And I think the problem is that our industry hasn't positioned itself properly. We should be positioned in the real estate market as the experts.
Right.
And we haven't. And so what we need is for our clients, our home buyers, agents, whoever we're working with, we need them to rely more on our opinions. So when they go out and get an HVAC contractor to come in or a mold guy, I'd like every one of our clients to call us back and fax over or email over the estimates or the proposals and say, is this guy full of it? Do I need this? Do you have 10 minutes to look this over and evaluate it? And I'd be thrilled if every home buyer we work with would do that because, again, it's just going to position us in the marketplace as the experts, and it's going to allow us an opportunity to help people who don't understand the process. Our home buyers don't know about mold. They don't know about heating and air conditioning, but we do. We know enough to know that when we're looking at a proposal that this is just a lot of baloney and it's unnecessary. And so I think that's what we need to do. We need to get out there and tell people that we're the experts, we're the consultants, and you're welcome to come back to us whenever you want, and we'll help you through this, and we'll evaluate it. And we encourage our clients to call us even 15 years after the inspection. We'll be happy to talk to you and help you with anything that comes up. I think that's the answer.
I'm with you, and it's kind of ironic that sometimes the contractors throwing the home inspector under the bus when they're really the wolf in sheep's clothing. Yeah. Sometimes, and once they put that in their mind that they've got a mold problem, I think it's like a psychosomatic thing. Now they're like, oh yeah, I do feel kind of, and it's bull, it's bunk sometimes, not all, but anyway. Well,
some people really get sick from mold though, and
oh yeah.
You should take Dave Sherwood's training. It's a day and a half well spent, and it gives you the answers to those questions so you can intelligently present it to your clients.
Cool. I think I'm going to. Actually, I'm supposed to return his call, so that's why I was kind of probing you there because I want to get an unbiased opinion on it. Well, one more kind of negative thing, and then we'll have a little bit more fun. And Rory, I really want to tell you, I appreciate you taking your time to spend time with us here today.
My pleasure.
I want to ask your opinion on something else. I'm bothered sometimes by what I see on home inspector forums. There's some great people on there that'll help one another, and I think that's what it should be. We should all help each other out, raise the profession, but every once in a while you'll get some chest thumping or ego something, and it just doesn't look professional. It makes our profession look bad. You have any ideas how we could, I don't know. I don't know if there is a fix or any suggestions on how we can clean that up or make our profession look a little better?
Well, it bothers me too because it makes us look like fools. But I think it's kind of like that 80-20 rule, but it's probably more like 98-2. And 98% of the noise is made by 2% of the people. And those forums really should be there to help inspectors who are new or somebody who comes across something they've just never seen before and they have a question. But it seems to me that every time somebody asks a question on there, a legitimate, honest question, they get beat up. You idiot, you should know that. What are you doing calling yourself a home inspector if you don't even know that? That's not the way. That's not the way it should work. I think those forums and those message boards need to be managed better. There should be moderators who are throwing those people off. Unfortunately, I think the moderators agree with those opinions usually. Yeah. I'll tell you the bottom line. If I was new in the business, or if I was advising somebody new in the business, the last thing I would tell them to do is listen to somebody who has enough time to post on a forum 30 times a day. Because they're not working.
Right.
I don't have time to read them, let alone post on them. And those are the people that the newbies in the business should be looking for. The guys who don't have time. Those guys are just sitting around waiting for their phones to ring, and they're bitter about it.
Yeah, and anybody who's doing a lot of business, they think they're doing something wrong or not trained enough or something. But yeah. I'm right there with you. Well, we're going to lighten it up here a little bit, Rory. Now remember, I told iTunes we're G-rated when you answer this question. What is the wildest, craziest, or weirdest thing you've ever found on a home inspection?
Let's see. I've seen a lot of stuff in 30 years. Recently, we found a really big marijuana growing operation in a building.
Nice. What was the address on that? No, I'm just kidding.
And we found it. I found it was in the wintertime, and I was playing with a new infrared camera, and I just saw this one room, the heat signature coming off. It was huge.
Right.
And we get inside, there was no door. There's just a space that you couldn't get to, and there was a bookshelf. It was hinged. Like an old horror movie. There's a hinged bookshelf to get in, and we finally found it. It was pretty interesting. We've seen a lot of homes with bullet holes in them. I don't know. That's probably more common than I think it is. And then one time we found some kind of a S&M bondage room in the guy's basement.
50 Shades of Grey or something.
Yeah. This was worse than that, but yeah.
Oh, man. Now, did the marijuana one? Did it have like growing lamps and everything that was sitting off the heat?
It had. I mean, it was in use.
Nice.
It was in use. The agent called the police over there.
I'm just, I want it to be known it wasn't me that called the police in case they're tied to any mafia or mob people.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, I don't think it was that big, but I think
wow.
The SWAT team swarming all over there in no time. It was interesting.
But you know what's cool, though? I like the idea of the secret room. Just I inspected a house, didn't have anything, but they showed us they had sort of the same thing. And I was like, how cool is that? I mean, I like the idea of a secret, I don't know, Sherlock Holmes or Batman or something. But I was like, honey, that's where we're going to put the steel.
There you go.
So keep the revenuers away. Well, Rory, do you have a resource you'd be willing to share with our listeners, something like an app or a web page or just something you found or a training resource, just something you think that would help our listeners with their business?
Well, again, I think a lot of people you talk to might have said this already, but I think the best money I spend on my business is the money I spend on my mastermind coaching.
Okay.
Millionaire Inspector community. I can't even put a dollar value on it, giving us access to people. That's how I met you. That's how I met Dave Sherwood. That's how I met everybody who's helped build my business. I met through that mastermind group, and it's worth every penny I spend.
Awesome. Now, Rory, what is the best part of your job and why, and what's the worst part of your job and why?
Well, the best part of my job now is we're growing, is that I'm able to help other people, other families succeed. And that I get a lot of pleasure out of that, watching guys that work for me. And I don't know how much people pay their inspectors, but I have a guy who works full time for me who makes a very good living.
Right.
Finally. Right. And I'm happy about that. And I see his family and his wife and his kids are happy, and his life is pretty good. And that we have a part of that. So
yeah, I've got the same sort of thing. I got one guy that works for me that's probably one of my best guys, and he was before he did this, he tried a furniture delivery type business. I mean, he owned the trucks, but I think he was gone all the time. He had to deliver. I mean, he was overnight. His family never saw him, and it was up and down. And he tells me all the time, and his wife, that he's so much happier now. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's better than the money we make when you see that you're changing, or you're leaving the world, or not leaving the world, but you're making the world a little better than you found it, which is kind of cool.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, Rory, is there anything you're working on right now that has you jacked up, or you're excited about?
Yeah, well, like I was saying earlier, we're building operations manuals for our company for every little thing that we do, from answering the phones to inspecting houses, back office procedures, everything. So every time we do something, we're writing it down and we're putting it into the manual. And that's a work in progress, but our goal is to have it done by the end of the year. And we're going to have a shelf full of manuals, and basically just like the systems in a McDonald's. Somebody from off the street can walk in, open one of those manuals, and learn how to do that job. And I'm going to be thrilled when that's done. So that's our goal for the end of the year, and I think we're going to make it, and I'm really excited about it.
That's excellent. And it's not just McDonald's. I mean, Starbucks does that. That's why, no matter where you walk in the world, you can expect professional, That's why I will pay $4 for a cup of coffee, because I know it's going to be done the same way, and the people are nice, and they're very professional. And I just wish I would have known to document all this stuff earlier.
It would have been a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm like, God, I've redone it so many times, and I'm like, man, I could have saved myself some heartache. Well, we're down to the last 3 questions, Rory, and I really appreciate the time. For the listeners out there, Rory is actually out of town at a wedding, and he's got a hotel room full of family right now, so he's really bending over backwards to spend some time with us. Rory, if you had to move to a brand new town equal to the size of Boston, which there could only be a few that I can think of, but let's just pretend here for a second, same demographics. Everything is the same. It's just you don't know anybody. You have all the same equipment, all the same knowledge, all of that, and you have $5,000 to start, basically marketing in an area you don't know anybody. What are you doing that first week with that $5,000?
First week. The first 2 days, I think I'd spend just scouting the competition, see what the other companies in the area are doing, what they offer. I'd be calling them and trying to do some checking on their pricing, what services they offer. Then, of course, you'd have to print out brochures and business cards. And then I would immediately find a local board of realtors, become an affiliate member, and sponsor a function.
Awesome.
In front of those people right away, let them know that we're serious about business, and this is how we roll, and then we're going to be involved in your organization. We're going to support your charities, and we want to create a long-term relationship. And I don't think very many people in our business do that. So immediately it would set you apart from the rest of them.
Absolutely. Roy, is there anything that I should have asked you that I did?
Let's see. Well, I don't know how much you know about it, but working in Massachusetts, we have the most restrictive licensing laws that I know of anywhere in the country, and it's just it makes our job really interesting and really difficult.
Right.
For instance, in Massachusetts, we can't market to real estate agents.
Wow.
We can't give a real estate agent, we can't even leave a pen in a real estate office. We can't give any real estate agent anything of value. So we can't bring lunch to an office. We can't leave scratch pads and pens with our company's phone number on them. We can't do anything.
That's crazy, man. That's almost that's almost, I don't know.
That's trade, yeah. But real estate agents are also prohibited. They're not allowed to refer home inspectors.
So you have to market to the general public mostly, I guess, kind of.
We're creative. We're creative the way we do things.
I'm trying to, as you were saying that, I was going to say, so no ice sculpture, huh? I'm like, darn it.
I could bring it in. I just couldn't give it to them. But, if they were having a function, I can't say, here, this is for you. I can bring it in and show it to them and take it back with me, and that would be okay. But
Rory,
heaven forbid I leave 2 pens on the table with our phone number on them. Take my license away.
And you know who will turn you in, too? It'll be your competition. Any little thing, because it's funny. I'll tell you something privately, but man, next conference, do one of those ice sculptures, man. That would be a hit. I'm telling you, I'll bankroll it for you, whatever it costs. Let me know.
We'll talk about it.
All
we'll
right.
work on it together. You're an artist.
I know. Teach me how to do that. I want to know how to do it. Would you use like a pick and a hammer and stuff, or?
We rough them with chainsaw, and then we just finish them with chisels.
Ah, man, yeah, man. Let's do that. That's cool, man. I'll buy the beer. Well, maybe we better not have beer if we mess with the chainsaw.
Yeah. After the chainsaw go away, maybe.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, lastly, is there anything that you'd like to ask me, Rory?
I don't know. Yeah, there's one thing I always wondered is, where do you get those pants?
I wear the crazy britches, try to be remembered. They're loudmouth John Daly pants.
Well, they work, though. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
people all over the country say Preston Sandlin and say, I said, the guy with the crazy marketing britches. Like, oh, yeah, we know him.
Yeah, it's funny. If I just wear khakis now, it's like realtors are disappointed. They're like, man, where's your... And, most realtors are women, and it's like, I've been disappointing women all my life. I really don't want to. I really don't want to do that if I can help it. So, but no, it's to try to be remembered. I know some home inspectors look at me and think I'm an idiot, but I'll be an idiot all the way to the bank.
Exactly.
I mean, it's anything you can do to be remembered. That Malinchek or whatever big money speaker, he always wears a purple shirt because he says, nobody, else wears purple, and that just sticks in people's mind. So, it's marketing. Realtors get it. People at the convenience store, not so much, but it's all right.
Right.
Well, Rory, you've been so gracious with your time, and we really appreciate it. The listeners appreciate it. Let's see if we can get you some likes on Facebook on your page to try to, I think that helps with your search engine optimization. What's your Facebook? Do you have a Facebook business page?
I do. It's Warren Home Inspections.
All right. Well, everybody that listens to this, when you get back to your computer, not while you're driving, go back to Facebook, go to Warren Home Inspections, give this guy some likes, and help him out, because he certainly helped us out today and gave us some value nuggets and value bombs. Is there a way they could get in touch with you, Rory, if they wanted to follow up with you?
I never answer my phone. I have people that answer my phones, but even if I gave you my cell phone number, I wouldn't answer it if you called me. So email is the way to reach me. It's just Rory@WarrenHomeInspections.com.
Sweet.
I'll be happy to get back to anybody if I can help somebody with something.
Well, thank you, Rory. And, man, it's been an awesome conversation. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you get back to your wedding.
All right. Well, thank you. It's good to talk to you.
Same here, Rory. Have a good one, brother.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks for checking out the Successful Home Inspector podcast. You can find show links at thesuccessfulhomeinspector.com. Check out the website for special offers, information, and other resources. Thanks again for listening to the Successful Home Inspector podcast. And remember to check back for new episodes. The Successful Home Inspector podcast is brought to you by Preston Sandlin and Home Inspection Carolina.